All right. We will get started. And if anyone else wants to join us live, they are welcome to pop on in. Otherwise, if you are listening to the recording, just drop any comments, questions below the recording, and we will have 2 additional sessions in this little mini series, this little mini training, and I'm definitely more than happy to tap in to those just to kind of set the tone for the room. It is summer. It's today's officially the first day of summer, so happy summer. But that being said, there are kids at home, there are dogs at home. So if you hear, a dog bark or the stairs are behind me, if someone walks up and down the stairs, just know that there's no censoring over here. This is real life, and that's part of what I wanted to offer in this space is just a taste of what it's like to navigate your health and well-being goals around real life. And so in starting this little mini series, what I really wanted to create is an intimate space for you to really start to adjust your perceptions and your belief systems around what is necessary to make your goals work during the summer. And so one of the things that we've been going through in the Strong for the Summer program, which is my short-term summer program that I have been coaching ladies through, is really understanding that your goals can ebb and flow and shift based on the season. That doesn't mean that you're any less motivated. That doesn't mean that you're any less driven. What it simply means is that you're a human being. And from my perspective and my experience, I've now been in this industry for over a decade. I've been through my whole entire transformation. And so I'm very familiar with the way diet culture and society conditions us around how we should be showing up for our nutrition, how we should be showing up for our workout plan. All these shoulds that are placed on us, which ultimately lead us feeling overwhelmed. I hear a lot of things like hopeless or helpless. Confused is another big one that I hear. There's so much information out there circulating that's contradictory of other bits and pieces of information, and ultimately it leads to burnout. It leads to this feeling of I need to be doing all these things in order to focus on this one thing, and ultimately women just feel like they're selfish for paying attention to their own goals. They're selfish for showing up for themselves. It's either family time or me time. And there is no in between of what's going on there. And so what I wanted to offer was just some perspective shifts. So a lot of what I'm going to be chatting about over the next 3 days is going to be a lot of mindset stuff, because from my perspective and my professional experience, more often than not, this is what's holding you back. There is so much information out there that, again, as I just mentioned, is leading to frustration, overwhelm, and confusion, that you don't need for me to tell you that broccoli is going to be better for you than a Snickers bar, just point blank. But what we need help with and we need support around is understanding how to navigate this stuff, how to navigate the information in order to gain clarity around what actually matters, so that you're able to hone in your focus and you're actually able to follow through. But in doing so, we have to release some of these limiting belief systems. We have to release some of these stories that we're holding on to that are keeping us, I call them mindset traps, that are keeping us trapped in this mindset around it's either I love my family, I love my kids, or I love myself. And understanding how we can bridge the gap between the two to say, okay, there's middle ground here. There's middle ground. There's a time and there's a place to where we can be super focused on, having our nutrition super dialed in, our fitness super dialed in. And there's also times where we can have a little bit more flexibility and just spontaneity, honestly, right? I mean, who wants to spend their entire summer with every single thing planned? And I can also share, just from professional coaching experience, that's one of the big things that a lot of my one-on-one clients have currently been voicing that they're struggling with. Because one of the things that I do teach in my 12-week program is how to track your macros. And so one of the big pieces of that is going to help you be successful, as some of you may know, some of you may be watching, listening, and you are macro tracking, is the pre-planning. And so this does remove some of that. Okay, well, I'm going to go out and be spontaneous. And so I want to share with you over the next 3 days how that is actually possible, to do both at the same time. And so to kick things off today, I've just got a couple of little bullet points that I want to start you off with today. I'm going to try to keep these little trainings as condensed as possible, because again, I recognize that it's summer and you are busy, but I also want to give you as much value as possible. And so before I get into what I'm going to offer you specifically today, I want you to also understand that over the next 3 days, my intention for this space is for you to leave this 3-day training and feel complete, like you have something to move forward to within the next month and the following month, leading into back to school season, which offers its own set of challenges. I want you to feel like you have clarity and direction. And essentially, I want you to feel at peace. That is another huge feeling or emotion that I hear from women, that I hear from my clients, is that they are uncomfortable or they're anxious around different things that have to do with their nutrition and their fitness, specifically this time of year. And I want to remove that anxiety for you and feel like you're moving in the correct direction while still feeling like you can live your life. And so today I thought, just after going through some check-ins, so Monday, and I know some of my clients will actually watch this too. Monday is check-in day for us. And so, I was reviewing check-ins yesterday, and after having some conversations with clients, I thought it would be fitting to just kick us off with the topic of getting back on track. And so this is a common thing that you will hear. Maybe you've thought yourself, maybe you've said out loud after the weekend, after vacation, perhaps even a holiday. And so if you're in the US, we have 4th of July coming up. I believe it was 2 weeks from yesterday. It's hard to believe. It's almost July, but getting back on track after overindulging. And so before I start to give you a checklist of this is what to do, this is what not to do in order to get back on track, I want you to pause for a moment. And, if you're in a position where you can actually journal, take notes, jot things down, whatever, use the notes app on your phone, I want you to pause and reflect on what getting back on track actually means for you. So when I say, let's get back on track, or when you say, I need to get back on track, what do you actually mean by that? And the reason I want to start off with this is because, again, I really want to call out the different themes around our conditioning when it comes to nutrition and fitness, and the conditioning that we need to be on a wagon, or we're off the wagon, on the horse or off the horse, is a lot of is a big trap that's keeping us stuck, feeling like we're either good or bad. And from this perspective, we can never win, right? Can never win, because there are going to be times when things are a little bit more difficult than other times. And so what does that specifically mean for you? And once you've figured that out, some of you, I'm going to normalize and call out, had difficulties coming up with an answer. And I want to explain to you why. So again, looking at the way we've been conditioned on the wagon, off the wagon, a lot of times we perceive that we had a weekend, we had a holiday, vacation. And if we weren't tracking our macros, if we weren't super specific with all of the things, then we were bad. We were overindulging. You had ice cream with the kids, you didn't track it, all these things, because we ping-ponged from being super rigid or feeling like we were super rigid to relaxing. And so when we're operating in, this is a way that all or nothing thinking shows up, which, by the way, if you haven't heard me say before, the all or nothing thinking will keep you in the failure zone 100% of the time. This is another way that our brain ping pongs back that says we're either all in or we're all out. And here's the reason that our brain subconsciously and naturally defaults to this pattern. All or nothing is certain. In one way, shape, or form is safe because it's known. And all or nothing is black and white. And so when we look at the way our brain is framing things, the way our brains are working through things, it thrives off of control. And so where do we lack control? When there's not a right or wrong answer. And the tricky part about truly being successful and sustainable with your nutrition and fitness is we can't have a black and white right or wrong answer, because our bodies don't work that way. Metabolism doesn't work that way. Our hormones don't work that way. And our lives don't work that way. And so this is one of the most difficult things for women to overcome. By the way, this is why meal plans, 30-day shreds, super rigid exercise programs don't work, because it continues to perpetuate. I wasn't able to stick with it this week, so I was off the wagon. This is why, very specifically, much to some of the women that I work with's frustration, that at Updog Wellness and Fitness, we don't do meal plans. We don't give you black and white answers. And from coaching, I understand, this is one of the hardest parts about my job. I understand your frustration. I understand the anxiety that bubbles up with that, because I was once in the position where I was like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. You ever thought that? Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. I'm a rule follower. I'm a great student. If you give me deadlines, tell me what to do, I'm going to do it. But at the end of the day, can we stick with that for forever? What happens when you no longer have a coach? What happens when the meal plan ends? Then what do you do? Well, for most, they continue the yo-yo and they jump to the next thing. And so the key to breaking the yo-yo, the key to understanding what's going to move you forward, is to break this pattern of on again, off again. And so a few things that I'm going to share. These are real life scenarios that I've offered with real life clients that are in the same boat as most of you. To check in with why you believe that you were off, why you believe that you need to get back on. And so a lot of the times, so just throw a little bit of science. I'm going to throw a little bit of science, which, by the way, mindset is a science too, but a little bit of science in here. So our metabolism job is to keep us safe. It's always looking for balance to keep us in homeostasis. So it's a safety mechanism as well. Our brains and our minds also want to keep us safe. So none of these things are to attack you, to cause you to fail. And so one of the misconceptions that I hear from a lot of folks is that they have these thoughts, and then we start to get into conversations, because everyone's heard of self-sabotage, right? And so self-sabotage and ego and all these things have a really bad rap. But if we actually look at it for what it is, and can find like even a little bit of appreciation, even if it's pissing you off, even if you feel like, okay, this is why I can't lose weight, this is why I'm tired all the time, and that may be true, but understanding it for what it is, rather than saying like, I'm a terrible person, I'm self-sabotaging all things, we can understand that that is specifically designed, it's naturally designed to keep you safe. And so until we can start to unearth these little safety mechanisms and understand their purpose in our journey, in our lives, in our health, then we're not going to be able to break them down. And so being able to understand that there's benefit for your brain to create these stories, like, okay, you need to get back on track. You were really off, all these things. That's keeping you in the certainty pattern, on again, off again. That's keeping you in the yo-yo. We're either doing this or we're doing this. We can't find that messy middle because that's uncomfortable. That's not known. That's not safe. And so starting to question, our brains also don't like to be questioned. Starting to question how these stories, these thought patterns are true and how they are untrue can help us to start to break them down and create more expansion, more possibility within our mindset. And so I want to share from a scientific perspective how this is keeping you in a state of metabolic dysfunction. It's keeping your hormones out of balance. It's perpetuating your fatigue, your brain fog, your anxiety with your Hashimoto's. It is perpetuating the lack of regularity in your cycle with your PCOS. It's because our hormones are all a part of our metabolic system. And metabolism, for what it is a barometer for stress. And it responds to stress. It adapts to stress. That's its job. And so what we are not perceiving most of the time is how on again, off again, is just feeding into that stress. So from our perspective, we go on vacation, we have a relaxing weekend, we're relieving stress, right? However, what's happening on a physiological level is we're going from a place of I'm super dialed in, I'm super restricted on my nutrition to a place of I'm letting everything go. And so for a system that lives to keep us in balance, that's just going from one end of the other to the other, which leaves our metabolism, our hormones, and essentially our health just overstressed all the time. Restriction is stressful. Indulgence is stressful. Being over relaxed is stressful. Being super rigid is stressful. And so again, balance is the messy middle. And I call it that because it is messy. Because I get women that come to me every single day and are like, can you tell me the best foods to eat to balance my hormones? Can you tell me the supplements that I need to be taking? Can you tell me this, that, and the other? Can we make it black and white? And my answer is always no, it depends. It depends on how your body responds. But I can tell you, and we can't really mess with how the body responds or can't even really interpret how the body responds until we get clear about what's going up in our minds. And so asking better questions puts us in a place of curiosity, which, by the way, is one of the key components to actually creating long-term sustainable change, as proven by psychologists. Puts us in a place of curiosity. And more often than not, and again, I want you guys to challenge your belief systems about yourself, your goals, your nutrition, your fitness, and your future. More often than not, when it comes to nutrition, and about 90% of the time, we're in a state of judgment, self-criticism, and a lack of trust. And so perhaps that's a little bit triggering for some of you, but I want you to pause and question, does that feel true for you? When is the last time that you were just truly curious, that you were leaning into self-trust versus a constant state of judgment? Criticizing, that was bad. Shouldn't have done that. Got to do better next time. Got to start over again on Monday, right? And so one of the things that is actually we're going through in the Strong for the Summer program, which, you know, again, when I first started coaching these concepts, it's a big source of anxiety for me because I knew how triggered I was by some of these concepts, and I know how hard some of these things are to process. But we started talking about the messy middle, moderation and satisfaction, and understanding that the biggest complaints that people will have about this concept is that it's too permissive, that it's not black and white, there is no structure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Brain, ego wants the structure. But how many times do you find yourself rebelling against the structure? I know I did. And again, when I tell you, I mean, health and fitness is my life. And so when I tell you that it's a big part of my journey, that I had to get past this rigidity because I was constantly in the all or nothing yo-yo cycle, like so many of you are. I understand that you're sitting there saying, I can't trust myself to just relax around food. And so if that's what's coming up for you right now, I want you to pause and say, is that really true? What evidence do I have to support the truth in this statement? Because as we dig into this a little bit further and we start to get really clear on what our defaults are, what we also have to recognize is that we're constantly building evidence for one end of the spectrum or the other. And so when our brains are trying to keep us safe, when our ego is trying to keep us safe, what's it going to do? It's going to automatically continue to create that evidence that says, oh, you believe this, so let me show you how this is true. And this looks like, I can't trust myself to have one chip. And so we say that once, got chips, then you eat 30. See, I knew it was true. Rather than pausing and reflecting and saying, is that really true? Can I trust myself to have one? Maybe the first time that you do that, your default's been 30. The first time you do it, it's 15. And again, our brains and all or nothing thinking is like, see, I told you couldn't do it. But when you pause and say, wait a minute, is that really true? I just cut that in half. That's a pretty big deal. Which leads me into my next point around recognizing what's true about our accomplishments. I will tell you, this is, again, this is 100% true. The truth. One of my clients yesterday, she wrote in her check-in, the first question that we ask is around wins and what their accomplishments were for the week. And so this is how good our brains are at saying, you didn't do enough. You didn't do enough. You can't trust yourself to do this, blah, blah, blah. Brains are really good at that. Her opening statement was, I don't feel like I really accomplished anything other than getting 6 humans packed up for camp and 2 days worth of traveling. And then she goes on to explain some of her nutritional things. And I was like, wait a minute, she didn't leave anybody behind. Wait a minute. Did you really not accomplish anything, or is that a pretty big accomplishment? And so most of you in the room are moms. And so again, this shows up in, I can't take time for myself. It's selfish, is taking away from others, right? But, when you start to make statements like this, pausing and saying, is this really true? Can give you a lot of really great information about other scenarios in your life. Because the thing is, and the thing that keeps so many stuck in the summer months around their nutrition and fitness, to where they feel like they need to do a juice detox or cleanse or blah, 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 whatever, is they feel like their nutrition and their fitness is separate from the rest of their lives. And this is the hill that I will absolutely die on, because this shows up in so many different ways. I actually had a client, she has a beautiful story. She had a very tragic family circumstance happen months ago. She took like a month off of coaching because she just felt like she couldn't manage it all. And a month later she came back and she was like, I really realized that I can't navigate this scenario without having support and continuing to work on myself. And so it was a really beautiful story. But she'd done a lot of work to get to that point, because we feel like our nutrition and fitness is a separate entity. And again, this is one of those mindset traps. And until we understand and we're able to link in our brains, this is how this shows up in other areas of my life, the more we're going to create evidence to support that. And so again, noticing defaults around, I can't because of this, and asking yourself, is that true? So you'll notice there's a common theme here. Anytime we have these thoughts, good or bad, is that true? And all this is doing is taking our brain, who has the natural pattern, the natural default. It's like, okay, we have this thought, this is what happened, this is how it always happens, this is the result. And so it's a loop, right? Anybody ever had a negative story loop in their head? And still get them. And so by pausing and saying, is this true? What does that do? Stops the loop. Stops the loop and says, let's dig into this a little bit deeper. And so if you're participating in this mini training, this mini challenge, this whatever you want to call it, chances are you're here because you need a reset. You need to stop the loop. Chances are you're here because you have the loop, right? And so as we dive into the next couple of days, I really just want you to start with your thought patterns and your belief patterns around your defaults. Today is the official first day of summer. What do you feel? What do you perceive about your nutrition, your fitness, your health, and your goals going through the next several weeks? And which of these perceptions, which of these stories are defaults, are truths? And which ones do you need to shift in order to actually make a difference? Clarity is the first stop on the roadmap to getting to where we need to be, right? We don't get to where we need to be by being super cloudy and unclear. So we're going to build a roadmap over the next couple of days. Start understanding where we are. And tomorrow we're going to shift into how we can turn where we are now into our compass, our inner compass that's going to guide us all the way to home base, the journey, the vacation, whatever. Make it something magical and exciting for yourself. And so take a minute, take several minutes, and I want you to write down, to close your eyes, and I want you to think, where am I already crushing it? And give yourself a pat on the back. And by the way, if you're watching this, listening to this, showing up for this, it's already a pretty huge step in the right direction, right? What does getting back on track actually mean for you? And what are your default patterns around caring for yourself, showing up for yourself, and how your nutrition and your fitness needs to look, feel, or be? These will be our big starting bullets, foundations, pillars, whatever you want to, whatever feels good for you to say, this is my foundation. This is where we're building the beginning of our roadmap. And then tomorrow we will meet right back here. And we're going to chat about how to turn that clarity into direction to get to where you want to be and to stay there. So I'm super excited to go on this journey with you guys over the next couple of days. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you again tomorrow.